We recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. Jason Schilling, president of the Alberta Teachers Association, will provide a statement on the first day of the teachers' strike. Once he concludes his statement, he'll answer your questions, starting with those who have joined us here today in person. If you're online and have a question for President Schilling, please use the raise hand function found at the bottom of your screen under the React tab, and then we'll also call on you in the order your hands are raised. Please go ahead and state your name and outlet before asking your question. Everyone will have the opportunity to ask a question and a follow-up question, and we'll take any additional questions if you have them following. For assistance following this availability, please reach out to myself. I'd like to go ahead and welcome President Jason Schilling.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you everybody for being here this morning. So today is not a day that any of us wanted, but it's a day that regrettably became necessary. Today also marks the largest labor disruption in Alberta history, with 51,000 teachers going on strike across the province. Today our classrooms, hallways, and school fields are empty, and not because we've given up on public education, but because we care too much about it to stand by and watch it slowly erode and crumble from chronic underfunding. This strike is not just about wages. This strike is about the state of public education in Alberta. The government says they don't know what teachers want. Well, yesterday, tens of thousands of Albertans across this province shared once again what teachers want. Teacher-student ratios, support for complex classrooms, and fair pay. We're looking for sustainable solutions, a way to stop our students from falling through the ever-increasing cracks that appear due to a lack of funding. And we refuse to be back in this same fight 5 or 10 years from now. We're striking to break the cycle and demand lasting change for future generations of students and for future generations of teachers. For years, we've watched class size and complexity grow without much needed resources, and still, teachers have shown up. For years, we've had to reach into our own pockets and wallets to give students what the system wouldn't, and still, teachers show up. We've juggled overcrowded classrooms, added workload, and government policies that were made without listening to the professionals who were expected to just make it happen every day. And still, teachers showed up. But today, enough is enough. Today, we're not showing up in a different way. Not because we don't care about our students and their families. Teachers want to be in classrooms. They want to see their students back at school. It's because teachers are tired of being told to do more with less. We're tired of a public education system that is treated like an inconvenient cost instead of a valued investment for our future. We are tired of a lack of resources for teaching and support for the students who we teach. We did not become teachers to leave our classrooms behind and our students in this way. We became teachers because we want to make a difference. And when the system is broken, and in crisis like this one, when the ability to do our jobs is ineffectively compromised, when the provincial government continually disrespects the teaching profession and its members, then speaking up becomes our responsibility. And this strike is not just about us. It's for the students who can't get the education they deserve because of class sizes and lack of resources for complexity. It's for our colleagues who are stretched too thin, who are burning out and leaving the profession. It is for the families who deserve a sustainable, funded, fully inclusive public education system. And we know the days ahead will not be easy. We also know that we are not alone. This was so evident yesterday. Parents, students, community members, people from all sorts of neighborhoods came to rallies across this province to show that this fight is their fight as well. And we thank them for the support, their solidarity, and the advocacy that they're going to do on behalf of public education in the weeks coming ahead. We're here today because we care, and we will continue to stand strong, stand together until our voices are heard. We will not be ignored in this fight. And let's get our kids back to the classroom, because when teachers are supported, kids are supported. Thank you. And I'll now take questions, Heather.
Bring along CBC National. The Premier is in Montreal and Ottawa today, the first day of the strike. What do you make of her not being in the province?
Well, I understand that the Premier has responsibilities for every Albertan across this province, but I would think that the largest labor action in Alberta history would warrant some attention from the Premier.
How long are teachers prepared to strike, considering the ripple effects this is having on them, their support systems, families, so on and so forth?
No, I understand the impact this is having on teachers, on students, on their families. Ideally, we would want a short strike so that we could get back to work, but we also know that we need to stand up for public education. We're in a crisis right now with what's happening in our schools, and teachers are taking this stand not only for themselves now, but as I said, for future generations of students and teachers as well.
Morning, Black Global Edmonton. Mr. Schilling, also in the Premier's comments today, she said that she doesn't believe that the two parties are, quote, that far apart. Do you agree with that?
Well, we still need to have conversations about how we get to a negotiated settlement if we can get to that. But we need to make sure that we're having conversations that are going to give concrete changes to the way that schools are operating right now. Those are things that will be negotiated and talked about, and we've been talking about those things. But we're also going to push government, not just now, but in our advocacy work that happens after the strike, to make sure that we're no longer the least funded school jurisdiction in all of Canada. This lack of funding is one of the key factors that has led to this crisis in education. You cannot keep underfunding the system year after year after year and think that people are going to be okay with it after a while.
And TEVA has said that they sent the union or the ATA a letter asking for, I believe they called it creative solutions, but they hadn't heard back. Like, are you working on these so-called creative solutions to come back to the table?
Yeah, I'm a little bit perplexed by this response, as we received a letter from the bargaining association on the other side on Thursday. We met with them on Friday. We're in exploratory talks about solutions that we can find. This is not uncommon in the bargaining process to have conversations like this when you are in such a contentious situation. And those talks started last week.
Sean Amato with City News. I'll just ask you the question I think every parent wants to know, which is how long is this going to last?
Well, it's a great question, and I can't give you a definite answer about how long the strike will last. Ideally, we would like to be able to get a solution that is going to work in our schools and that's going to work for teachers, families, and the association, but we'll have to see where we go from here.
I know some parents support you. You know some parents support you, but some don't. Some are saying, you know, this is a greedy union doing a thing that's hurting kids, that's hurting families in Alberta. So what do you say to parents who don't support you, or at the very least don't support your teachers not showing up today?
No, and I understand that, and I respect completely that not everybody is going to agree with the position of the association or the fact that teachers are on strike. I would just point to the fact that 95% of teachers voted for strike action in the spring. 90% of teachers voted against a memorandum of agreement last week. That is a strong, powerful voice that people need to recognize, that teachers across this province are saying we cannot do our jobs effectively and serve our students in a way that they deserve without some serious changes to the education system in Alberta. We're standing up not only for ourselves, but for our students, and I would hope that parents could recognize that.
All right, I've got a question out front here.
Jackie with the Journal. When will you sit down at the table next with the province, and how far off the mark is 12% over 4 years?
Well, we'll sit down once these exploratory talks have have finished, and then we can get to bargaining from issues from that. When we look at our initial proposal that was put forward and approved by teachers about a year or so ago, the last time you saw teachers ahead of any kind of inflation in terms of their purchasing power was 2010. So we have a number that was in our initial proposal, and they have a number as well, and we'll just have to find through negotiations a spot that will work for everybody.
When is the next exploratory talk?
We'll continue those talks this week.
Today?
As I don't know exactly of what's going on today. It's been a busy morning so far, but those talks will continue. We understand the serious nature of this, and we're not dragging our feet as I sometimes will hear or see within commentary from others within the social media world. We understand the serious nature of this, but we're also going to stand up for our members and stand up for our students. So we'll have the talks and we'll move forward with that.
Connor Hawk, CTV News. I was just wondering what's going on with other school staff like EAs, bus drivers, school administrators. They are still at work today, right?
School administrators are part of the Alberta Teachers Association, so they are our members and they would be on strike today. When it comes to other support staff that are working in schools, educational assistants, bus drivers, office administrators who are working in the front office, that's sort of been a board-by-board determination of how they're going to do that. I have heard of some are coming into work, they're doing a variety of other things, and some are closed and they're not working right now.
Is there any concern that some of those jobs could be eliminated as a result of the strike if it goes on for too long?
Definitely. I mean, these are the things that teachers considered in terms of the impacts of strike action. We understand that these are the people that they work with day in and day out. I've worked in schools up until I became in this role. I was dependent on the people working at the front office, the EAs who are working in our schools, librarians who are in their libraries. We work together. We're a team, and we understand the impact this has on the team.
Janet French from the CBC. If I'm the government thinking of a strategy for this, I know that the teachers aren't getting paid, they're not getting strike pay. They might just try to starve them out, right? How worried are you that teachers will be backed, by, if the strike drags on, kind of into poverty, forced to accept something they don't want to accept because they can't pay their bills?
Oh, and I understand that's a risk that teachers weighed when they voted. They knew when we had our vote on the strike vote and on the memorandum of agreement that they didn't have strike pay. We are paying their health benefits through the course of this, which is critically important to make sure that they're maintaining their health benefits as we go through. If government wants to starve teachers out, then I guess I would question the intent of what government is trying to do here. Do they actually really want to get a deal and get students back in classrooms, or are they just looking to bust a union?
Also wondering about the class size cap or pupil-teacher ratio that you want. The Premier says that that's not possible because there isn't space in the schools to do that. How would you respond to that?
Well, so we're supposed to teach our classes in overcrowded spaces because the government failed to plan. So it sounds like an excuse to me. Oh, well, we can't do a student-teacher ratio because we don't have the space. Well, schools will get creative with individuals and teachers within the building and find ways to use those individuals to help and support kids. Other jurisdictions like BC, Manitoba, Ontario have these provisions. They make it work. And when I talk to my counterparts across this province and through the Canadian Teachers Federation, they also have overcrowded classrooms. And so they're able to make it work. I fail to understand why Alberta can't.
Dr. Bates with CP, can you describe a little bit more what these exploratory talks entail? What does it mean?
Well, it's sitting down, and like I said, it's not unusual through the bargaining process to have these kinds of conversations. So it's being able to sit down in sort of a non-confrontational way, talk about what are the issues that either side are having in terms of trying to find a deal and moving forward, seeing if there can be some common ground, and then resume bargaining talks based on those conversations.
Are you able to share any reaction again to the government announcement last week with they're paying families or children under 12, $130 a week, the toolkit curriculum? Like, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I think it's interesting that we're willing to pay parents, to help them out with childcare costs, but not willing to invest that funding into schools. I know that my colleagues have spent some time looking at these online kits that are being prepared for students and have grave concerns about what the government has put together. Some of the packages that you see are not at grade level, or they're asking students to look at concepts that teachers have not taught yet. They're also very much based from American curriculum, and so teachers have a lot of concerns about that. And we know that parents are going to struggle through the next week or so. We would like to see a solution come forward so that we can get back into our classrooms and that students can learn.
Does the ETA have a goal for when it wants to return to the bargaining table?
We've no end date in sight or a goal. I mean, we'd have to see how negotiations go. We'd have to see how government responds to the fact that teachers have stood their ground. They said they were going to go on strike if we did not get things in a system that are going to fix it, and they did it. And I'm not quite sure if government expected teachers to follow through on their resolve. But having talked to my members for years now, and I know government likes to say the ATA leadership doesn't listen to its members, but I am a teacher. The leadership of this association are teachers working in classrooms. There's commitment and resolve by our members for this work.
If we do review Canada, I was wondering, so right now there are no picket lines, or do you have any strike actions planned, should you maybe lose the support of some parents, or do you have anything planned?
Well, what we've done in Provincial Executive Council, who's the governing body of the association, made the determination that we would have rallies and demonstrations, but not necessarily picket lines. Because you would have teachers from across the province, they have to picket at their school. And some teachers, there's 4 teachers, for instance, in Milo Community School. And so they wanted to do something that was different. We listened to our members about what they wanted in terms of this action. So our locals are planning those rallies and demonstrations. They will plan for other work that's going on as well as the days go on. And I would invite parents to join those rallies and those demonstrations to show that you too care about education and the fact that your students don't have the resources that they need in their schools.
And yesterday, Finance Minister, his office said that they had called the ATA at the bargaining table over the weekend, but that he had not been available. That's something you can speak.
They had conversations about this on Friday, and we're available for conversations. So again, I'm perplexed a little bit by that comment.
Okay, we're going to move online for questions now. So I've got Jacqueline Wilson. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Jackie Wilson with CTV. I just want to first ask, are you worried at all that the province will force teachers back to work like they've done for previous strike?
That's a lever that government has. And when you look at the bargaining process, as I've always said, there's 2 hands on the wheel. And so government has that ability to legislate teachers back. We'll deal with that when we get to that spot, if that's something that should happen.
Okay, and then if I can just follow up, circling back to, you were talking about the paying health benefits for teachers. Is that the only kind of way that the union is using their fees to help teachers right now? Can you talk about them other ways?
Well, the primary one is that we'll be paying for health benefits for teachers across the province, but locals are also setting up strike offices across the province and working in a variety of different ways to provide support at that local level. As an association, we have a provincial association, but we also have locals that work within their communities and can understand better sometimes than the provincial just what the needs are within those communities. So locals are setting up ways to support teachers as well.
Thank you. Thanks for your question. We're going to go ahead to Graham Thompson. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question regarding the government is negotiating in public in many ways. It's more so than I've seen any time in the past. How is that affecting your negotiations with the province when it's being so partisan in its stance publicly?
That's a really great observation, Graham. I appreciate that you noted that, because throughout this whole process, I've talked to many reporters who ask specific questions about bargaining. I'll say bargaining should happen at the table, not in the eye of the media. But we have seen a lot of that. And what I've seen come from it is a lot of misinformation, a lot of untruths about the bargaining process, about what teachers want, about what teachers are looking for. We very much have tried to stay within the lines of not bargaining in the media, because we understand that we don't want to create expectations or rumors without there, because that serves no purpose for anybody.
And as a follow-up of that, you mentioned the support workers, of course, they're on strike at their own strike. That did not shut down the schools. Are you letting the support workers cross the picket lines and go to work? Or are you asking them to also join in the strike in a sense? Not go on strike, but obey the picket lines?
Well, I understand that, but the way that labor code works in Alberta is that different unions sometimes exist within a building and that they need to go to work. And so there's no expectations on our part for CUPE, who were on strike for many weeks this fall for the exact same reasons that teachers are on strike now. And we have no expectations for those members to incur any further hardship. They have a legal responsibility to their employer, and we understand and we respect that. And I'm in constant communication with the leadership within CUPE so that there are no misunderstandings about things as we move forward.
Thank you for your question. Zoe Mason, could you please unmute yourself and state your outlet before you go ahead?
Hi, Zoe Mason, Medicine Hat News. The government of Alberta is offering families the option of enrolling their children in home education programs, and if the family chooses this option, families are eligible for up to $450 per child in education grants. However, students who take this option are not guaranteed to return to the same school they attended prior to making the change to home education. What are your thoughts on this measure?
Well, it makes me question the seriousness of this process and negotiations. If we're willing to do what government has indicated there and say you cannot maybe go back to the school that you left, is this a way to further undermine and erode public education in the province? We know that this government believes in choice in education. They fund private education the most out of any jurisdiction in Canada. 70% of our private schools are funded with public dollars. They can limit the students who come to their schools. Private schools can set class size caps. Private schools can charge fees and spend up to tens of thousands of dollars more per student per year than a public school can. And government is giving them an increase. For instance, in budget 2025, public education saw a 4.5% increase, private education saw a 13.5% increase, and we'll see a 30% plus increase by the end of the fiscal year of 2027. So this is a government that says they value the choice in education, but they sure seem to value one aspect of it a little bit more than the other.
And just circling back to one of your earlier responses about the online toolkits and the resources being made available to parents, you referred to some concerns that teachers have with that content, including you referred to American content in those toolkits. Can you expand on that at all?
Some of the toolkits that you look in there, the resources or the activities that they're planning for kids to do come from American-based curriculum. They're not based on Alberta curriculum. They're easy to download. They're worksheets. Having taught for many years, worksheets are not the end-all be-all of what we would want students to be doing in our schools. You teach with students, you interact with them, you get them to think beyond the worksheet. And so these seem like they were hastily crafted in order to provide support for parents. And I understand that parents will be worried about their students learning through the course of the next year, but we need to be mindful that we're keeping the resources that are being developed in the American or the Alberta curriculum context.
Do you have examples?
I do have some examples. I just can't pull them off the top of my head for you right now. So.
Okay, I've got Catherine Kurkowski next. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question, Catherine Kurkowski, All Alberta. You touched on this, that there's no picket lines as such, but I'm wondering, is there anything that the ATA would consider
Sorry, you cut out, Catherine.
I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Go ahead, please. You just need to repeat your question.
Catherine Kurkowski, All Alberta. So you mentioned there's no picket lines as such, but I'm wondering, is there anything that the ATA considers scabbing or the equivalent to crossing the picket line that you would ask parents who want to support you not to do?
Well, I'm part of what you say we're not picketing necessarily at our schools, but those are still picket lines. And so we would go through, case by case if we came across anything that would seem like it was scab behavior and address that as it came up. I would just have parents reach out to locals within their areas, the ATA locals, to see just what they have planned. If they have a strike center in their area, if there's a rally or a demonstration, pay attention to social media and show up. But I'd also encourage parents as well to contact their MLAs, call them, write them letters, make appointments to go see them, because these are the people who are making the decisions about budget, about financing, and about how we support public education. Again, parents have a very powerful voice in this process, and I would encourage them to be engaged.
And with how this process has gone so far, how confident are you in coming to an agreement that is satisfactory to your members?
You know, at the end of the day, we'll have a collective agreement. I think I spoke before when we had the memorandum of agreement fail, that it depended on which path we were going to go. Would we get a negotiated settlement, or would we find ourselves on strike? Well, we're on strike, but we still could get a negotiated settlement. Bargaining can happen at any point during this process, and we'll just have to see how talks unfold.
Thank you for your question. Hal Roberts, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Right, hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead, please.
Wonderful. Hi Jason, yeah, it's Hal Roberts with the News Forum. You discussed earlier about certain students falling through the cracks. Can you expand on that, and which students specifically?
There's students in every grade and every school across this province. You just have to talk to teachers, and they have stories about students whose needs they can't meet, about students who might come into school that have English as additional language, and we don't have one-on-one support for those students, or we don't have the programming for those students to make sure that they can thrive at school. We have students who have special needs that are supposed to have a one-on-one educational assistance, and they don't. They have maybe an assistant for the morning, but they don't have one in the afternoon. We have classes that are so crowded that students don't feel like they're getting that one-on-one attention they deserve to get from a teacher. And I've had large classes in the 40s, and it is a struggle day and day in to help students learn, to work with them one-on-one, to help them. I taught English, so to help them with their writing, to help them with their reading. And you leave the day, at the end of the day, feeling like you failed. That moral distress of that failure on teachers is causing them to burn out and leave, because we know that students are not getting their needs met. We do not have the funding to do that. And this is a mess that has been created by the government, and it's imperative on them to fix it.
Now let's also talk about the needs for the teachers here. You've already said no strike pay, even though millions would be collected in union dues. Would you maybe reconsider that if the strike is prolonged for a long period of time?
Well, this is something that Provincial Executive Council would analyze and look at moving forward. And that's a decision that was made by Council in the spring. We've been honest with our members the entire time leading up through the last couple of years as we got into bargaining, that this could be a potential scenario and that they needed to prepare. And our members understood that.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks for your questions. I'm not seeing any more questions online, so we'll return to the room if anybody here has any additional questions.
I just have one. And there's a lot of discussion about the money being siphoned or redirected to private schools. It's like about $450 million this year, ballpark. But realistically, if you injected that money into the public system, how much of a difference would that make?
$460 million would make a difference, right? It's not going to fix the hole that we're in, but it would make a difference. It's a positive step forward. And the association, our policy is not against private schools. Private schools can exist for the sake of association policy. It's the fact that public dollars are going to private schools. And that is where our members have taken an exception.
Sorry, I just have one last question.
Yeah, you bet.
So during the pandemic, a lot of parents became used to remote learning. Well, not ideal, they at least became used to it. Do you worry that because parents now have that experience in the past, does that lower the ATU's bargaining power?
I don't think so. When I talked to parents throughout the pandemic and when they were at home with their children who were trying to learn remotely online, they understood the difficulty of it, right? They appreciated the fact that, you have teachers who are trying to teach kindergarten through Zoom. So imagine trying to teach, 6 and 7-year-olds through Zoom, and parents understood the complexity of what is there. So I think parents understand what's happening within our schools. They understand why teachers are making this stand, and I think they appreciate just the work that teachers are doing. Yes, I was. I was on the strike committee for my district. I was 6 years into my career at that time.
How do you see the situation comparing to that one?
Well, they're very different in terms of the context of where we are, but ironically, we were on strike for some of the very same reasons we are on strike today, wages and classroom conditions. And I remember when we were out for 13 days, we were ordered back through legislation, which the association took that order to court and then won, but teachers went back to work, right? And because they recognized the impact that was going on. But through that, you got the Alberta Commission on Learning. And so the province toured around with a panel, asked questions. I was fortunate enough early in my career to present to that panel as well and talked about what I was seeing in my classrooms. And through the Commission of Learning, you got the guidelines for class size. So 17:1 for kindergarten, 20, I think it's 20 for 4 to 6, and it moves up in that. Government's never put that into policy. So we've had, a large strike, about 20,000 teachers back then. Conversations came out of that of how to make the system better, but governments have failed to address that.
Would you do that again? Would you take it to court if the government ordered you back to work?
Again, we'd have to look at the context of how that was. The legislation that they used at that time was an emergency tribunal, which we took exception to because it was a part of our charter rights in that if I get that, I might have that wrong, Janet, just for the sake of trying to scrape my memory with that. But we would look at the context if we were ordered back and what our options are.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, so I think we are going to leave it there.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. We have sent